Welcome back to Capitol Review. I'm Mark Hall. President Trump is now in his third month in office. Many say it's early in the second term. Polls show that his approval ratings are in the high 40s nationwide. The president keeping many of his campaign promises, including shrinking the size of the federal government. Joining us now is Republican strategist and Newsmax contributor and former White House staffer to President Reagan, Jeffrey Lord. Jeffrey, welcome back to Capitol Review.
Good to be here, Mark.
We're always glad to have you, Jeffrey. It's still early in President Trump's second term. Your thoughts on the approval ratings at this point? What do the numbers tell you or don't tell you?
Well, they tell me that he really has hit a nerve here. I mean, not for nothing did he win re-election and win by the size that he did. So I think the American people wanted him to do exactly the kind of things he's doing. I mean, getting rid of the Department of Education is one of them. Things of that nature. He's doing what he was hired to do.
Well, Jeffrey, obviously President Trump promised to cut the federal workforce. The way he's going about it, and also with the help of DOGE, is there a better way? I know there's no good way of letting people go, but could they have gone about it differently? I know behind closed doors, lawmakers are asking him to use a scalpel and not necessarily a chainsaw.
You know, I'll tell you, Mark, I'm old enough to have been working for a congressman in 1981 when President Reagan came into office, and he made a young congressman from Michigan, Dave Stockman, his director of the Office of Management and Budget. And Dave Stockman was feared all over Washington for being exactly like, as I would say now, an early precursor of Elon Musk. He slashed everything in sight, cut spending, cut budgets, etc. This is what you do in that job. There's no great way to do it. So here we are.
Jeffrey, if you were advising the president, what would you tell him to keep doing and what would you tell him to maybe do differently?
Oh, I'd keep going with the DOGE and Elon Musk. What I'd do differently maybe is just have him a little more associated with all of these things, to get out there and do the personal appearances with some of these things to make it plain that this is what he was hired to do and why he's going to do it.
Obviously, Jeffrey, President Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, the party also controls the House and the Senate. Is the party in good shape moving forward? Very.
And, you know, as I say, I've been around the block. These things, president popularity go up and they go down, and something happens and it helps them a lot, and something doesn't happen and it doesn't help them. So at the moment, he is doing quite well, very, very well, I would say. But, you know, the future is whatever the future is going to be, and we don't yet know what that is.
Jeffrey, I'm sure that you've seen town halls across the country, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle answering to their constituents. Many of those town halls they've been a lot of people have expressed anger and concern. Your reaction to those town hall meetings?
Yeah, I have to say, having done my fair share of these when I worked for Congressman Schuster and Senator Hines, if I've learned anything, when I watch the television version of these things now, I do think that there are people who are paid to go there and raise the roof. It's not just a bunch of interested citizens. I think that there is a real political angle and a paid political angle in some cases. So I do think that's a bit of a problem.
Folks expressing their concerns about their job losses with no landing spot. I mean, it's something that
that I understand. Yeah, that I do understand. But this is the problem. I mean, do we really need a federal government that is that big, that costs so much money? You know, and on and on and on we go with this. And the American people are tired of paying through the nose for this kind of thing.
Jeffrey Lord, thank you so very much for joining us.
You bet, Mark.